Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Auto Accident Attorneys Podcast. I'm your host, Attorney Ali. As always, the podcast is sponsored by the Auto Accident Attorneys Group, where we take care of you. Today, I've got my co-host and sister, Attorney Holly Cole,
That's me.
and one of our oldest and closest friends, not only a very close family friend, but also a former client of the Auto Accident Attorneys Group, Miss Sorma Golchin.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
Beautiful Sorma. I can't wait to get into your story. And the purpose of having you on the podcast today was actually Attorney Holly's brilliant idea of saying, hey, you know what might be helpful is if we have somebody as a guest that's gone through the process with the Auto Accident Attorneys Group to not just talk about what the process with the firm was like, but also some of the subjective things that you had gone through from your accident and things that maybe you had never thought that you would have to deal with. I've described on a prior episode about how an auto accident is traumatic mentally simply because you're not expecting it and you do it all the time. So you always feel like you're in control. And when that one time something happens, immediately you feel like you're completely out of control and it kind of like shocks your world. And hopefully most people never have to experience it, but it is a very, very common incident. So I am looking forward to diving into questions that I never even asked you.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here. Holly and I, just casually as friends, we're having a conversation about my experience, just my car accident in general, and then my whole thought process. And we were like, you know what? This is some good info to just share with people because, one key factor was right after my car accident, or just pretty much any time I've been in a car accident, I immediately I wanted to stay away from insurance and attorneys.
Yes.
Where does that come from?
I think it was just like growing up and not being fully educated on the process of a car accident. They tell you take photos and get the police report and blah, 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 blah. But one thing I know about insurance companies is any little minor dent, speeding ticket, whatever it is, if you are ever in touch with your insurance company, your premium's going to go up. And so I just, not really thinking so forward. I was just more so focused on like, well, I don't want my premium to go up. I already pay a lot in insurance, so I don't want to. I felt like I was getting in trouble anytime I was relying on my insurance to do whatever I needed them to do.
That's so real.
Yeah, and which is crazy because it's insurance.
That's what you pay them for.
You guys are supposed to help me, and I'm not supposed to be reprimanded for it. But that's just pretty much what I've always gathered from dealing with my insurance company.
And what about the attorney side?
That was just plain ignorance, just being uneducated and not knowing. Also, I guess I just didn't understand the process again of like you get into this car accident and you seek medical treatment. Also, at the time, I did have health insurance, but I didn't understand how health insurance worked either. So to me, it's like, okay, well, I've got to deal with whatever cost is going to come from my car insurance, deal with whatever cost I have with the medical bills, and now I got to pay an attorney, not knowing how it all just kind of like comes together at the end and like the payments and all that stuff. So I remember when I got into my car accident, it caught me off guard. I was on the highway, standstill, and I hear this giant boom. And then two more booms after that. And my car is shaking. And I honestly, not to be dramatic, I thought a bomb went off because I was like, what's happening?
It's loud. It's really, really loud.
It's louder than you'd think.
Yeah. And so I realized like my head also cocked back and forth about 6, 7 times because it was a 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe it was a 4 or 5 car collision. The car in front of me fled. They got out, they made sure I was okay. Nothing happened to their car and they dipped out. So essentially I'm like at the front. Car behind me is a Jeep. So it was an SUV. And I get out and I see everything. By the grace of God, I'm okay. I just had a couple scratches around my neck from the seatbelt. So I wasn't thinking anything of it. And in my mind, I was just like, okay, I'm good. I'm fine physically.
When you say I'm fine, and I think I know exactly where your brain was going, you're not missing a limb. You're not bleeding out.
Yes.
So when you say I'm fine, that's that's
Mhm.
what you mean because that statement right there, you say that to the insurance company, it's done.
Yeah. Just got a little scratchy scratch. We're good to go. I'm fine. Again, not knowing what's to follow after all of this. And so I was actually on my way to pick up something for work. So I carried on with my day, but as the day progressed, I mean, I was just out of it. My body starts like aching, tensing up, and like even the guy that I was working with at the time, he just kind of looked at me and he was like, "Oh, are you okay? Like, do you want to go leave?" And I was like, I forget who I was texting at the time, and they were like, "You should just go to urgent care. Just go to urgent care really quick, get a checkup." So I went to urgent care, and they recommended I go to a medical clinic or an ortho clinic. And I went there. I'm explaining my situation to the guy, and he looks at me. He goes, "You should get an attorney." I was like, "No, I'm okay. I don't want to." He's like, "No, you should get an attorney." I mean, it was like a solid back and forth for at least 3 minutes because 'cause I'm just like, "I don't want an attorney." Like, I don't want one, and, I don't wanna deal with it, and he was just like, "I'm telling you to get an attorney."
I'm gonna pause right there because I wanted to say this earlier when you were talking about hiring an attorney and you're going through all these thoughts of what's insurance gonna cover, what's health insurance gonna cover, what's the attorney cost. I think if you've never been through this process before, the idea of hiring an attorney is not only like, "Oh, what's that gonna cost?" But also you're thinking, "This is an overwhelming process." If
Mhm,
you've never done it, you don't even know where to begin.
mhm.
And so it's like you're missing out on this opportunity to seek justice and to seek compensation only because it's something you've never done before and you're
Exactly.
afraid of what the outcome's gonna look like.
Yeah.
And what's wild is that I think that plaintiffs' attorneys don't do a very good job of expressing what the service is because when you think about it, you know this now because you've gone through the
Mhm,
process. But when you think about it, the entire it's a support system,
mhm.
really. It doesn't make things more difficult, it makes things easier.
Mhm.
And we do a really poor job at expressing that to people. Not only there's no upfront cost, it's not out of pocket, and all of the entire infrastructure of the law firm is meant to support you through this process to make you whole again.
100%,
Well,
yeah.
and I think people have a hard time because really all it takes is picking up the phone or submitting an online inquiry. But I think people, get overwhelmed because there's also a lot of options out there,
Yeah.
and I don't know what you're about to say, but I'm, like, lucky for you, you
Yeah.
had
I'm so curious
workplace
about how that
protection,
goes.
yeah.
So do you remember how I got connected to you?
I don't remember.
So, Frankie, shout out to Frankie,
Really?
probably the only positive thing he's ever contributed to my life. He I don't even know how he knew about the accident. I think my brother probably told him. Now, my favorite thing about this, let me just kind of give a little more backstory. I told my brother about the car accident, and he's just like, "Yeah, you'll be fine." Like, another reason why I'm like, "Oh, I'm fine, guys." Like, in my family, what is that Persian meme that's like American families are like, "Are you okay?" And Persian families are like, "You are okay."
Yeah.
That's like
Same
literally,
words.
yeah, I got just, mixed up a bit. So that's, again, and I think because it was you and obviously, family history and all that stuff, I was just like, all right, well, I've got to be in good hands. Like
You felt more comfortable.
yeah. You also told me that like if I didn't, work with you, your children would never go to college. Just so
I've never been very good at sales.
very just matter of fact. I
It
appreciate it.
worked.
Yeah, it did. Clearly, I'm sitting there now just well, I have another story way after this for you guys because I did think about your kids when the Chick-fil-A poll hit me. Um,
It jumped out of nowhere, huh?
we'll get there. I remember just from there, got on the phone with you, and you were again very matter of fact about everything. Like, don't worry too much about the legal process. Just seek the medical help that you need. And I remember throughout the entire process, I would check in with him and I would be like, "Are we sure this is okay? Like, I feel like I'm really running." But I was in excruciating pain. I have to make note of that. I found out soon after I was concussed. My jaw was misaligned from the cocking back and forth. And because I have scoliosis, I mean, my back was jacked up. There for a solid 6, 7, 8 months, I mean, I was in fetal position. I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit. I was seeking every form of treatment you can imagine.
So this is important because this is the same person. You're the same person that had this use the words right after the accident. You had a couple scratches on your neck, and you're like, "Oh, I'm fine." And then as time progresses, all of these things are going on.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it's like, what is it? What's it called? Like, not referred pain. It's deferred, like when it happens like days later,
Yeah,
like it
yeah.
just that's the
Deferred. Yeah.
yeah. So that's pretty much what and that's when I learned, and it made me reflect on all of my other accidents that I had been in,
Mhm.
and just been like, dang man, like had I known what I know now, I could have at least not even for the payout aspect of it, but like literally just
Your
seeking help,
health.
the medical health, like making sure that like my spine is okay and things
Right.
like that. So, I mean, again, it was like I was in PT in therapy, I think, for a solid year and a half,
Wow.
doing like outpatient surgeries, things like that. Um, and not much was working until, I finally locked down the right orthopedic and the right physical therapy or physical therapist. And, you know, I feel like we got to a place where it's like, this is as good as it's probably going to get.
The interesting thing I'd like to talk about, I don't know if you were keeping up with tort reform in Georgia. Did you hear about it all this year?
Holly educated me.
So one of the things going on with tort reform, the insurance companies get upset. They say that we just talked about your accident and everything that you actually felt and went through, right? You're confused about the auto insurance process. You're sort of confused about what health insurance is like. You didn't want to use an attorney. When you're injured, you're not a medical professional.
Mhm.
You don't know exactly where to go. Insurance companies harp on the fact when lawyers or law firms will refer either a specific doctor or a specialty.
Mhm.
A specific doctor I can understand because there could possibly be some sort of deal going on, be like, "Oh, you should always go to this doctor,"
Mhm.
which is not good. But as far as being like, if your shoulder hurts, most people don't know if it's a shoulder, I should see an orthopedist.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
if it's my neck, I should go to like a chiropractor or a pain management specialist.
Mhm.
So it's a huge deal that insurance companies make about law firms referring patients to medical clinics. But without that information, patients don't really know where to go.
Mhm. And again, I'm very fortunate that, like, I have a brother in the medical field.
Mhm.
So, at the first spot that I was at, he kinda told me he wasn't, like, a huge fan, and then, after months of being there and not seeing any progress with anything, it was just, like, referral after referral. He's just kinda telling me where to go, and at this point, I'm like, I'm also learning what kinda doctors to trust. But yeah, no, that's a good point. People don't know. They don't know that, like, it's again, my first thought was urgent care, like,
Yeah.
which not a bad place to start. They referred me somewhere, but yeah, you gotta really know, like, when to see a chiropractor, when to see a physical therapist,
Mhm.
when to go to the orthopedic, when to go to I don't know, whatever else is out there.
It's one of the purposes behind this podcast for consumers is to get this sort of information out. We haven't had a topic about medical injury symptoms and what type of medical provider to go to. The information that we always put on podcast is information that people typically don't have.
Mhm.
And this is one of those things where, but for the attorney telling you about the different types of therapies and modalities of treatment, you might not know.
Mhm.
I think it's a big deal. I don't know how the tort reform issue is going to play out. One of the things that I've been tossing around in my mind, actually, yeah, I texted you about this earlier, Holly, was creating a map on our website with it based on geography and then split down on medical specialties, so that but there's nobody's paying to be on it. We don't have any relationships with anyone. It's just literally all the types of doctors. And then you could go to that map, type in your symptom, and then it tells you what kind of doctor. And then you, based on where you live, you can go and choose your own. So that becomes a resource
Yeah, I
for the
think that'd be
client
great.
without us having to tell the client, be like, this is because there, I will say, you had shared, we edited it out, but you had shared when you were in urgent care, they had referred you to a particular clinic. Unfortunately, there's a lot of that going on in the
Mhm.
medical field. They're called runners and cappers. And some of the biggest cases never make it. We spend a ton of money on Google, and Most of the cases never even make it to the point of going onto Google to search for an attorney because while they're in the ER or urgent care, they got scooped up by a
Mhm.
runner.
Mhm.
So there are unscrupulous players in there, and unfortunately, this tort reform that Georgia passed did nothing to change any of that. I can't say that they're not beneficial because at the end of the day, they're at least putting a patient in touch with a law firm. Now, the type of law firm that's using that is probably not going to be the type of law firm that has your best interest in mind,
Mhm.
but it's better than not having a law firm, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I don't see any benefit of going
No.
against the insurance company without representation.
Mhm.
To that point, actually, let me see if I can get you to ask me the question. One of the things that you said about an attorney was the cost, right? So you've gone through it now, and you know that it's a contingency fee, and the whole point is so that you get a compensatory check at the end.
Mhm.
One of the things that even people that understand that the attorney's fees are contingency fee based, that they don't have to be paid out of pocket, one misconception that they have is that their case has X value with or without an attorney. So when they have that perspective, that's why they think about the percentages because they're like, if it's going to be $100,000 regardless of representation, I don't want to give you 33%. Let me
Mhm.
go find somebody that I could give 25% to.
Being involved in an accident where I am getting an attorney involved as well, and it also being you, I didn't even think to, like, shop around or whatever. I was just kind of like, "I trust him." Like, it is what it is, and I didn't even have any idea of what I could walk out with. So for me, it really wasn't even a matter of the payout, like I said. It was just I was really following the guidance of people I consider to be my older brothers, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And, like, between the doctor, Frankie, you, everybody just being like, "This is a case you need an attorney for." I was just like, "Okay, well, everybody keeps telling me this." So, whatever the percentage fee, whatever I walk out with, like, that was kind of irrelevant to me. It was more so about, like, having the guidance, especially after I found out, like, of all of my injuries. I was just like, because another thing too, just wanna kinda sidebar, I never knew that liens were a thing. Like, I always
Mhm.
thought that you pay everything up front, you know what I mean? So I had no idea, and you educated me on that. You were like, "Don't worry about paying for things, like, all gonna basically stack up, and we'll deal with it at the end." So with that, I was just like, "Alright, well, yeah, I need big boss to figure this out for me. I don't wanna deal with the payouts and insurance in particular."
And that's a huge thing is I think there's 2 big aspects of a personal injury case. Obviously, your medical treatment, which you've already indicated, like, was invaluable, and even though it didn't necessarily get you back to, like, 100%, if you hadn't gotten that treatment, God knows how you would be feeling right
Mhm.
now. And then the second aspect is dealing with the insurance, dealing with those medical bills that do pile up, and then ultimately getting a claim paid out. And I think another valuable aspect of attorneys aside from being able to kind of connect you with the right people to get you feeling better, is dealing with all of that. So
Mhm.
I wanted to get into that aspect of it when once you got through all of your medical treatment and it was kind of time for negotiations and things like that, from your perspective, how did it feel? I don't even know like how much you really even thought about the fact that, oh, I'm not the one actually having to deal with all this.
Oh, oh my gosh. Praise God. I was like, literally, and that again, it was another great benefit of, like, I don't have like, my only focus, and I remember calling you a couple times and, again, being concerned about certain things, and you were like, "You focus on getting better." Like, that's it. Just get whatever treatments you need, focus on your health, make sure you're not in pain. I got the rest. And I think, like, after maybe the 15th time of him telling you that, I was just like, "You know what?"
I'm really happy you're saying that because I say that to clients today. People will call in there after the first initial call, they'll call back and they'll remember things. They're like, "Oh, like this person, I don't think they were paying attention and I think maybe they did it on purpose or something like that." I'm like, "Hey, don't worry about any of that
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm.
I've got that part covered. The only thing you need to do is focus on your health.
Mhm.
Literally. There's nothing that there's no information that you're going to give me that's going to it's not like a Matlock case.
Yeah.
I've got that part covered. I've got the police report. We've got the E911 transcript. I've got the dash cam and the body cam footage. That's covered. You focus on getting better, and it's literally the best thing you could also do
Mhm.
because if ideally, we want you to feel better. If you don't, that does change the case value
Mhm.
if there's not improvement.
Mhm.
We need to make sure that whatever that your physicians have prescribed or whatever their orders are, those orders are being fulfilled so that we understand what the final prognosis is.
Exactly.
Earlier, you had mentioned you're like, I wasn't thinking about fee percentages because I didn't even know what it was worth. I didn't want to interrupt you, but what I was going to say at that time was full transparency. I didn't know either. No,
Nobody knows. So
nobody
you
knows.
won't know until the end.
Yeah.
So how do you guys determine that?
It's after we have the injury diagnoses. So that first week when you call, you had gone to the urgent care and you were referred out to a clinic, but there was no MRI, there's no diagnostic imaging. We didn't see what the injury diagnosis wasn't there. Like in terms, I think at that time at the urgent care, if I remember correctly, they had like cervical sprain or cervical strain was the diagnosis.
Mhm.
But then after you got diagnostic imaging, you had some disc bulges,
Mhm. I
right?
did, yeah.
So that's a completely different case valuation. A cervical sprain versus a disc bulge. And then the disc bulges, they have different measurements. Like how much is it bulging out? And the reason that that's important is because all of the nerves go down your spinal column, and in between the vertebrae is the disc material. That's what we're talking about. The disc bulge, that's the soft stuff. So when the vertebrae squeeze and that disc material
Comes out.
comes out, if it touches a nerve, it could be severe symptoms where you don't feel your fingertips, or it could be mild symptoms of every now and again you'd have like a shooting pain down your hand,
Mhm.
or your fingertips would get tingly.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the injury diagnosis and then also how it's affecting you subjectively. You and Holly could have the same exact injury diagnosis, but different symptoms and different lifestyles, and it would have different case values.
Mhm.
Well, that's a
Interesting.
great segue because, and I don't remember what you were doing at that time, but Sormay's in the music industry. And as part of her job, she has to attend a lot of shows. So she's on her feet a lot.
Mhm.
She's just mobile all day versus if you have a desk job, it's a completely different
Yeah.
valuation
Yeah.
Yeah.
because that's going to maybe put you out of work. And actually, let me ask you at the time, were you working?
I had 3 jobs at the time.
Wow.
Jeez.
So, yeah, I had 3 different jobs. I was in radio, I was assisting a photographer, which is what I was doing that day. That's a lot of, like, standing on my feet and holding up, like, a light stick and all that good stuff. And I also had I guess you could call it a desk job. And there was at no point in time was I ever at ease
Mm.
in any of again, sitting hurt because of my bulging disc probably because I'm obviously in that L shape and it's bulging out even more.
Mhm.
Um, in radio, there's a lot, I am going to concerts, I'm going to events, I'm lifting heavy equipment, I'm standing on my feet for hours at a time, and same thing with the photographer. So it was not a fun, it was not a fun year and change until I like really got into some PT.
Yeah, so when you ask about case valuation, at that first initial phone call, none of this stuff is known. So
Mhm.
as you go, and then he's talking about like having those diagnoses from the insurance company side, they have a dollar value that
Mhm.
correlates with each of those diagnoses. So it's very important that people get their medical treatment documented correctly and make
Mhm.
sure like you're touching on every single thing because then that's what's really going to build it. I also want to touch on there's obviously a caveat, right? If you're in a catastrophic accident,
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
it speaks for
Yeah,
itself.
sure.
Right.
But when you start getting into a little bit of the minutia of maybe a rear end collision where, as you already said, you thought you walked away fine, that's when it really starts to become a little bit more of an art.
Yeah.
The sinister part of all of this is that the insurance companies, they've got decades of data about injuries like this.
Mhm.
They know that that rear end collision that you were involved in, they know the kind of damage it can cause. But when they catch you on the phone and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry this happened. I hope everything's okay." Social norms, you're like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for asking." They're like, "Okay, how about, for your troubles, we'll pay you $1,000, close this out." They're not doing that because they're your friends. They're
Mhm.
trying to stop the bleeding on their end because they
Mhm.
know that if you get diagnosed further down the road and you realize what the true damages are. That's the part that really bothers me. It's a business, they have to turn a profit, but it sure seems like a nasty, nasty way
Oh,
to turn a profit.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of another benefit of having you guys in my corner. It was because, like, I probably would have folded. Like, you call me and I don't like confrontation. Like, okay, you want to give me $1,000? Sure. Should I film it? Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to give me your routing number? Um, Thought of like,
Yeah.
no, 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 it's okay. No, so it was good to have you. I mean, yeah, to sit there and you again, you know the back ends of everything. So
Right.
like, again, you know that they're calling me to settle essentially as minimally as possible. To me, I would have probably thought like that's so sweet of them.
Right.
But
They're such good neighbors.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like a good neighbor.
I feel like I'm in good hands.
And that going back to your point of people think that the attorney is taking a piece of a settlement that they would have had in either way.
Mhm,
Well, that's just simply not true.
mhm.
I mean, again, if it's a I don't even know if it's a catastrophic accident, like what the insurance would pay out. Like, would they pop policy limits?
It depends on the policy. If it's a
Yeah.
catastrophic accident and it's the Georgia state minimum of 25,000,
Sure.
they're definitely popping it because they don't want to expose themselves
To liability
to, yeah,
or
if it goes to
litigation.
trial
Yeah.
and litigation, then it really blows up. But if it's $1 million policy, even in a catastrophic case, we've got cases on file right now where they're pretty bad, and you would think that they would jump at the opportunity to pay out $1 million. They're always looking for a way out.
Yeah.
They're always looking for a way out. They
But
don't
that's
want to
their
do it.
bottom line is to pay less. And I think that's where attorneys get demonized when people are like, "Oh, they're taking a percentage," which
But I don't understand that. Sorry, not to cut you
no,
off,
no, go
but
ahead.
to me, like, you guys are the experts. Like, why would we not want you guys to like, I had a conversation not too long ago about something very similar. Like, somebody's very upset about, like, "Oh, how much are they gonna take?" And I was like, "Why does that matter to you?" At the end of the day, you probably are gonna walk away with more money if you are even money driven in this matter.
Mhm.
Like, you are gonna walk away with more money than you probably would have without yourself or on your own. But also, like, these people they've studied the law. They know the law. They are great at arguing. So pay them. Like, why not?
Well, I appreciate you saying that, but you're absolutely right about this aspect on in terms of their net is going to end up more.
Mhm.
I have this conversation with people on intake calls where I get pulled in because they're essentially shopping based on rates, and they'll say that they've called a firm and the firm said that they'd only take 25%. And I tell them with complete confidence, I was like, "Listen, our rate at a third, I could add another 10% to our fee, and you will still end up with more money in your pocket than the 25%
Yes.
fee firm." Because it's not, again, they have the paradigm that the case value is set on that phone call.
Mhm.
So now they're with that frame of mind, they're trying to see who takes the least percentage.
Mhm.
The reality is that if you find an expert, that case value gets driven up and you can pay more and still end up with more in your own pocket.
100 and I actually have a real life story about that. Again, I was in a car accident in college. I was a passenger. I wasn't involved, like, but again, yet again, another 4 or 5 car, collision on the highway, and I would actually say this one was probably worse than the one that I was personally in because the car was totaled, and I remember days after, I mean, my body was just aching and sore. Again, I did not know any better, so the insurance company did call me, and I think they offered me, like, maybe $800.
Mhm.
Wow.
And I was just like, "Sure. It's great. I'm a college student." Yeah.
Yeah. That's a long way
Love
from
it.
it.
Yeah.
In that example, you got 100% of the money, right?
In my mind.
Right.
What I know now, I'm like, "We coulda added a couple zeros."
Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
maybe one more.
Well, that's another great segue into once you finally got your settlement, kind of what was your reaction internally? How did you feel about the whole process? Like once it was all said and done, you got that check. What were your thoughts?
I think I wrote a raving review. 'Cause
You did.
yeah.
I remember.
'Cause it was really and truly, I'm not just saying this, it was, like, really life-changing. When I finally was done with the whole process, I was just like, "I can't believe I haven't been doing this for." I'm kidding. No, it's, again, not about the money. It really was, like, I was just very happy that I was able to get my body back to a place where I could not be in pain 100% of the time. I was happy with my settlement. I was happy that your kids could go to college. I was, just overall though, I was just like, it felt good to go through a process, one, learn about it, but two, like, my focus really was just on me getting better and knowing I had a team of people that were, like, behind me and supporting me and dealing with the stuff that I did not wanna, not only that I didn't wanna deal with, but I wasn't educated enough to deal with it independently. So,
I
that was
really appreciate you saying that. It sounds like a sales pitch, so I'm happy you're saying it because you lived it, so that's
Yeah.
a real experience.
Yeah.
We pride ourselves at the firm, it's sort of like at the core of what we believe.
Mhm.
One, it does feel like a fight to me every day. That's why I never get bored of it, because it's like this fundamental ideology of like, hey, we were just talking about it before. I know you're a private company and you need to make a profit, but you're doing it in a sinister way. So
Mhm.
if you believe you're fighting evil, it's really easy to always stay motivated. But at the core of what we do is we always say we take care of you. When you receive any of our clients that receive a check, when they receive that check, that is net, net, net. They put that check in their pocket and they walk away, and there's nothing else they have to worry about with the entire incident, the ordeal. There are firms out there, and I know this because clients have come to us after the fact, that they don't handle a lot of the medical bills. They don't handle a lot of the liens and the expenses. You were talking about liens before. You didn't know that was a thing. Shout out to the doctors that provide healthcare on liens, which is essentially like an accounts receivable.
Mhm.
If not for that, there are people that would never be able to achieve healthcare.
Yeah.
They couldn't rehabilitate. They could get no therapy.
Mhm.
So another aspect of insurance companies trying to demonize medical clinics that will literally help people on an accounts receivable. Like between these two entities, who's the bad guy here?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you're giving out healthcare to so you could bill us later. They're giving healthcare.
Yeah.
I'm like, what
Yeah.
the fuck is wrong with you?
They have developed this mindset that all of this should be free.
Mhm.
Like, you shouldn't have to pay for those things.
But you
You're gonna
should
pay
pay for our premiums.
but you should
Mhm.
pay for our stop spending money on your
Mhm.
health and your, legal guidance and counsel, and just give us that money.
And that's what pretty much what they're doing with the tort reform right now too.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But I love to hear I've personally never actually had to go through the process of being a personal injury client. So every time I think about it, like really go through the process of like what this must be like, I'm like, that to me is so cool. It always is awful to go through a car accident and to experience that kind of injury. But I also think it's really cool that you got to have over a year of treatment, which I'm sure from your end was daunting. But like you got a year of medical treatment and in the end you walked away with probably more money than you would have been offered considering that you were offered $800 in your prior accident, which was worse. And if you hadn't had an attorney, that wouldn't have been possible.
Yes.
In a lot of ways. I mean, I'm not saying that you wouldn't have gotten treatment or any kind of
No, I
settlement,
wouldn't
but
have.
maybe not to that
I don't
extent.
think I would have. I think I would have just been like, oh, a couple of chiropractic visits here and there. And because again, I had a bulging disc. I would have never gotten an MRI
You
because
wouldn't have even known.
I wouldn't have even known. I would have just been suffering through the pain.
And that would last your entire life and only worsen.
Yeah, and honestly, I probably from previous car accidents, I probably that is probably why.
That statement right there, where you literally just admitted without an attorney, you probably wouldn't have gotten the treatment. That's the insurance company wants that.
Mhm.
And they'll take it, they'll try and spin it and say, well, the attorney really like drove you to go and get no, you were injured, you were feeling it, you just didn't know what to do. The attorneys helped you get the help that you needed, but it cost the insurance company money, and that's why they don't like it.
Right. Which makes sense. If I was them, I'd probably be mad too. But
Sure.
yeah, but again, I
Mad at
think
doing their job.
yeah, I know, right? Oh, agreed. I think that attorneys, we know that you guys are here to help us, but I think that there's just a stigma around it, which and again,
Huge
having
stigma.
been through the process again, I'm just kind of like, why didn't I do this sooner?
We have representatives in the state of Georgia when tort reform was going on. These are elected officials, and they were talking about plaintiffs. They were referring to plaintiffs as rent seekers, and they were
Oh.
talking about scummy billboard attorneys. I mean, there's a reason why the stigma exists. The stigma exists because the people with money, the they that don't want us to win, they make it this way. Ambulance chasers, they say that the insurance premiums are increasing because of claims. Well, we're about to find out. Tort reform has passed, and they're about to tighten up what claim values are. We'll see 2 years from now, 3 years from now, did insurance rates, did insurance premiums go down or not? Who's really profiting? Is it people that are injured and making claims, or is it your stock that's publicly traded where we could see how much your shareholders are earning on a quarterly basis? It's
Oh,
ridiculous.
always very passionate about this subject, rightfully so.
It gets under my skin because it seems like it's such an easy fight to win, but it always feels like an uphill battle.
It is. And, I will say not every attorney is created equal. We know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Oh, I think that we've got an amazing team, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing so many kind words. And I'm sure, maybe there's a part of it that's biased because we've known each other for so long, but I truly, truly believe in what this team does. And I think there are definitely people out there that I personally wouldn't want to work with. So
Mhm.
I get it. I understand if you have hesitations, or maybe somebody has worked with an attorney prior and didn't have a good experience. So they might say from firsthand experience, like, I wasn't treated well with my attorney, but there's good people out there,
Absolutely.
really good people out there, and I think it's a shame to let either the stigma that's painted by insurance companies or otherwise, or a bad experience divert you from trying to work with a good attorney, because once you work with a good attorney, like, there's no turning back. You were it's and I think the part that insurance companies and a lot of big corporate powers that be, like, don't want to happen is people to feel empowered, and I think
Mhm.
having a good attorney on your side empowers you beyond belief, and
Yes.
so, of course, they don't want that,
Yeah.
but
They don't wanna see us win.
they don't wanna
No,
see us
no,
win,
they.
any of us.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I'm very fortunate to, like, know you guys on a personal level, and I don't think that my case was treated any differently than any of your other clients. Like, I do believe that you guys provide the best service to all of, your clients, but, yeah, I can definitely say, like, I 10 out of 10 recommend. So much so that, again, when when I hit a I mean, when the Chick-fil-A poll hit me, I called Evaluate, like, "Hello."
Popped out of nowhere.
Yeah, like, "Hey, I got hit again.
You're never gonna believe this.
You know what?
Do you
But
want your kids to go to college?"
I love that you have the mentality now, because that's understanding your rights,
Mhm.
that's understanding the that's the empowerment we're talking
Mhm.
about, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
not everyone's gonna be a win,
Mhm.
or you have a case, but it's fantastic that you're even thinking that way, because that's how everybody should feel, not just about personal injury, about anything related to law.
Yeah.
It's like, you
It's like I have, like, protection, I feel like.
yeah,
Even if it happens again, which I hope it doesn't, but even if it does, it's like I know I'm in good hands and I'm being well protected.
yeah,
Even if it's not us, I think the most valuable thing for you is that having gone through the process, you know how that process works.
Yes.
God forbid if something ever happens to me or the firms I hear, you know what to look for now. You know what that system is
Mhm.
like. You know that the commercials that you see that say that you're on your side, you know that you now know that to be false.
Yeah,
And I think that's one of the most important things to experience with a good law firm so that you know what the process should look like.
exactly.
And I want to wrap up on one thing, and I'm going to give you the last word, but I want to wrap up on one idea that I really appreciate you appreciating our firm. And I thank you for sharing your experience. And I'm happy that you had mentioned that it was life changing money for you. That money, you deserved every single penny of it. None of that was like a windfall. It wasn't a lottery hit. You went through trauma, you went through injury. The purpose of that money, the legal concept is literally compensatory damages.
Mhm.
It is to compensate you to try and put you in that position that you were 1 minute before the accident occurred. And I'm sure if you thought about it on the front end, like if you were leaving today, you're about to walk outside and you knew I have a conversation with you and I'm like, hey, when you go outside, there's a dollar amount that you can have so that when you go outside, you're going to be in pain for the next 18 months and you're going to have to go through all this therapy. What is that dollar figure? What can I pay you? You probably wouldn't have that number. Or if you did, it would be astronomical,
Mhm.
right? And that's what one misconception of both what the insurance industry tells people and also what auto accident victims might think, or people that don't want to bring a claim. And it's personal injury attorneys' faults for advertising this way. There's a somebody in Georgia that advertises like it's a casino jackpot. It's awful. I hate it. It's the wrong way to advertise. It's the absolute wrong message. It's not even what the legal concept is. Every single one of those dollars that people receive, they deserve every single dollar because they went through something. None of it is a windfall. I just wanted to share that.
No, no, I definitely agree, and I did use my money. I continued treatments afterwards and things like that, so it was I didn't feel like I necessarily hit the lottery and like, "Oh, I'm go splurge," but it was just like a, "This is something I'm gonna use to continue maintaining my health."
Yeah, even in catastrophic cases where they're tens of millions of dollars, that's not the situation. When you look at the victim, the situation that they're dealing with and their family members are dealing with,
It's
y
priceless.
Mhm,
it's barely begins to be fair.
mhm.
Yeah.
So, I don't these notions of nuclear verdicts, I don't buy it at all.
Yeah.
I don't buy into that at all. Sorma, thank you so much for joining
Thank you
us.
guys for having me.
Is there anything that you feel like we didn't touch on today that you would like to share with our listeners?
No. No, I think I said it all. Definitely recommend you guys, but aside from recommending you guys, I think the process of, going through a car accident, seeking treatment, and then the aftermath of the fight, it was very educational, and I always appreciate you guys for having my back and educating me, most importantly, educating me throughout the process, and the communication was always really great too.
That's awesome to hear. I really, really appreciate your time. I appreciate your friendship. We love you. Thank you for coming on. Attorney Holly, is there anything that you have to say in wrapping up?
No, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me,
I
guys.
hope everybody hears her and use her as a resource. She knows a lot about the process now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. On that note, if if any of our female listeners would like to join, what is it, once a month, it's the Women's Empowerment Experience.
That's right. Sponsored by the Auto Accident Attorneys Group. I host it at my home, and it's a female-centered learning experience, really, more than anything. We have each session, a woman leads, and she basically educates the group on typically what her profession is. So I led with auto accidents. We had a pelvic floor therapist teach us all things pelvic floor therapy. And last time we had physician's assistant who does aesthetic medicine. We're going to be covering topics like wills and estates, real estate, accounting. Include the fun stuff, styling, jewelry, but it's all just ways to expand our minds, be resources for each other, networking opportunity, and just feel empowered in all ways.
What's that social media handle?
It is at we.by.us. And it's we, WEE. We'll include it in the caption.
Wee. Well, listeners and mom, I love you so much.
Hi, Khalazi.
Thank you for listening. Tune in for the next episode. As always, if you could drop a like, drop a comment, share this material with your friends, anyone that could find it useful, we'd appreciate it. Help me take care of you. All right, everybody, take care.
Bye.